Welcome, all listeners, to the open mic.
Thanks for having me.
And when I say all listeners, I am talking directly to you.
Yeah, specifically to you.
Right. Whether you are currently, like in this exact moment, endlessly scrolling through heavily filtered, couple goals content on your phone.
Which we all do.
Oh, absolutely. Or maybe you're, I don't know, prepping for a slightly difficult or awkward conversation with your partner later tonight.
Right.
Or even if you're just intensely curious about the strange and kind of shifting landscape of modern love, this deep dive is custom tailored for you.
It is entirely for you. Because we are looking at the digital water we are all swimming in, right?
Yeah.
And we're asking a very grounded question. What is this environment actually doing to our real-world relational hardware?
Exactly. So our mission today is to unpack a really deeply insightful piece of writing. It's an article titled Love Beyond the Lens: Navigating Modern Relationship Standards.
It's a great piece.
It really is. It's written by Shruti Sood for the Morning Laziness website. And what this article does, along with, the clinical experts it brings to the table, is it kind of pulls back the curtain on this pervasive digital illusion.
Yeah, it deconstructs it entirely.
So we are going to explore how curated social media posts, those gleaming highlight reels, the perfectly timed surprise vacations.
Ones that always look a little too perfect.
Right. And the relentless public displays of affection.
Yeah.
We're looking at how all of that is radically distorting how we measure love. We want to look at how they are warping our sense of commitment and, completely rewriting the rules of emotional connection in our everyday lives.
It really represents a profound sociological shift.
Yeah.
We've taken human connection, which is inherently, intimate and complex and filled with friction.
So much friction.
Right. And we forced it through this digital filter that demands essentially flat perfection.
Wow. Flat perfection. That's a good way to put it.
And the psychological fallout from that translation is exactly what we need to understand today.
Okay, to set the scene for this, I want to bypass the high-level theory for just a second.
Sure, let's get into it.
I want to jump into a scenario. And I know you know this scenario because, honestly, we have all lived it.
Oh, I'm sure.
So picture a random Tuesday night.
Okay.
You're on your couch. You're wearing sweatpants.
Naturally.
Right. And you just had a remarkably unromantic dinner, like maybe reheated leftovers.
Just a standard, boring Tuesday.
Exactly. You and your partner are sitting in silence.
Yeah.
Maybe you just had a mild, annoying disagreement about whose turn it is to load the dishwasher.
Classic.
Everything is objectively fine. It's normal. It's a Tuesday. But then you pick up your phone.
Right.
You open an app and you start to scroll.
Ah, yes. The infamous Tuesday night doom scroll.
Exactly. Within 30 seconds, you are just bombarded.
Mm-hmm.
Like a former coworker is posting this slow-motion drone video of their partners surprising them with a private candlelit dinner on a cliffside.
Right, because everyone has a drone now.
Right. And then a fitness influencer you follow has published like a 5-paragraph essay about how their spouse is their literal soulmate.
Right.
Who has never caused them a single moment of doubt.
Which is statistically impossible then.
Completely impossible.
Yeah.
And suddenly, your perfectly fine, incredibly normal Tuesday night relationship feels, heavy.
Yeah, it feels inadequate.
You look across the couch at your partner, who is currently aggressively chewing a handful of almonds.
Right.
And a little voice in your head whispers, "Is this it? Is something missing?"
And that little voice, that specific feeling of lack, isn't accidental.
It's not.
No, it's a conditioned response to the media environment we're consuming.
Okay.
What we want to figure out is the mechanism behind it. Because we know it's a filter.
Right.
We know rationally that the cliffside dinner was probably highly stressful to organize.
The food was probably cold.
Exactly. The food was cold by the time they got the shot. And yet our incredibly smart, evolved brains fall for the illusion.
It's so weird that we do that.
It is. Our nervous systems react as if it's objective reality.
So let's figure out why that happens.
Yeah.
The article brings in Natalie Buchwald.
Yes.
She's the founder and clinical director at Manhattan Mental Health Counseling.
Right.
And she explains the underlying flaw in how we consume this media. She introduces this framework of the front stage versus the backstage.
Yeah, this is adapted from classic sociology, but applied to our digital lives, it is incredibly illuminating.
How so?
Well, when you are looking at social media, you are looking exclusively at the front stage of other people's relationships.
So just the performance.
Exactly. You're seeing the performance, the lighting is perfect, the lines have been rehearsed, the conflicts have been, edited out.
Right.
And the narrative is curated strictly for public consumption. But you, as the consumer, are sitting in the backstage of your own life.
The backstage.
Yeah. You see all the ropes, the pulleys, the messy dressing rooms, the script changes.
All the junk.
All the junk. The doubt and the utterly ordinary, mundane moments of your own interior experience.
It's like comparing the blooper reel of your own life. The miscues, the awkward silences, the times you accidentally say the wrong thing.
Right.
To the highly edited, CGI-enhanced blockbuster trailer of someone else's life.
That's a perfect analogy.
Of course, your blooper reel looks messy when you put it next to a multi-million-dollar trailer.
Absolutely.
But, I have to ask, isn't comparison just hardwired into us?
It is.
Like, if we evolved to look at our peers, to understand our place in the tribe, aren't these apps just optimizing a completely natural human drive?
That's a fair question.
Are we just blaming the algorithm for a biological flaw?
Well, you're right that the drive to compare is biological.
Right.
We are a deeply social species. And in our ancestral environment, understanding your social standing within a tribe of, say, 50 people,
Yeah.
that was literally a matter of life and death. If you were ostracized, you didn't survive.
Oh, wow. So the stakes were huge.
Massive.
Right.
So yes, the brain is constantly scanning the environment to see how others are behaving, what they value, and how we measure up.
Okay, that makes sense.
But the problem Buchwald identifies isn't the biological act of comparison itself.
What is it then?
The problem is what she calls the structurally rigged nature of this specific digital comparison.
Structurally rigged.
Yeah.
Because we aren't comparing apples to apples anymore, right?
Precisely. In an ancestral environment, or even just, 50 years ago, you were comparing your backstage reality to the backstage reality of your close community.
Because you actually saw them living.
Exactly. You saw your neighbors argue, you saw the reality of their daily struggles right alongside their triumphs.
Right.
Today, you are measuring an interior, unfiltered 24/7 lived reality against an exterior, highly filtered, heavily edited snapshot of millions of strangers.
It's an impossible standard.
It is. You are applying ancient tribal hardware to a modern digital input that it was never designed to process.
Right.
The structure of the comparison guarantees that you will come up short.
And the consequence of that rigged game is something Buchwald observes clinically.
Yes, she does.
She notes that people aren't usually coming into her therapy practice because of one massive, explosive event in their relationship.
Right. It's usually much quieter.
Yeah, they're coming in because they are haunted by a low-grade dissatisfaction.
A low-grade dissatisfaction. It's an insidious rust on the pipes of a relationship.
Rust. Yeah, that's exactly it.
It's not a loud alarm bell, It's a quiet, persistent hum of disappointment.
People sit on the therapist's couch and say, I don't know, we're fine, but I just feel like it should be more.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like we should be happier. They have this vague sense that they are failing at love, even if nothing is technically wrong.
And that low-grade dissatisfaction is the direct result of how desire is constructed.
What do you mean by constructed?
Well, we aren't born knowing exactly what a modern romantic partnership should look like.
What?
We build our expectations based on the models around us. Historically, your sample size was very small.
Just the people in your town.
Exactly. Today, you are fed thousands of data points a day of what idealized partnership looks like.
Thousands of points.
And it rewires your baseline. If you consume a steady diet of intense declarations of love and grand gestures, normal partnership starts to feel like a severe lack.
It's like eating hyper-processed, artificially sweetened food every single day.
Yes.
Eventually, a normal apple just tastes like cardboard.
Exactly.
You start to think the apple is defective, but no, your palate has just been completely overwhelmed by artificial sweetness.
That's a really good way to visualize it.
So what is the clinical solution here? Do we just throw our phones in the ocean and move to the woods?
While moving to the woods sounds appealing sometimes,
Definitely.
Buchwald argues the real psychological work is to become conscious of the comparison in real time.
In real time. So catching yourself in the act.
Catching yourself in the act of playing the rigged game. You have to ask yourself what this comparison is actually in service of. Because often, that intense longing or jealousy you feel while scrolling through an influencer's perfect anniversary post isn't even about the influencer's relationship.
Okay, wait. I want to dissect what actually happens in that room.
Yeah.
'Cause this feels like a massive pivot.
Yeah.
If it's not about being jealous of the influencer, what is it about?
What's fascinating here is that it's about projection.
Projection.
Social media acts as a massive blank projection screen.
Yeah.
We take our own unexpressed desires, the needs we haven't let ourselves want,
Right.
or the things we are too afraid to ask our partners for directly, and we project them onto these curated images.
Give me an example of that.
So, for example, you might see a post of a couple on a surprise trip to Paris and feel an immediate pang of jealousy.
Sure.
You might tell yourself, I'm upset because we never go to Paris. But if you drill down, you might realize you don't actually care about Paris at all.
Really?
Yeah. What you actually want is to feel seen. You want to feel like your partner put thought and effort into surprising you.
Oh.
Whether that's a trip to Europe or just bringing home your favorite coffee without being asked. The post is just the canvas for your own internal, unarticulated longing.
That requires a level of self-interrogation that I think most of us probably avoid.
It does. It's hard work.
But I want to push back on this a little because it feels like a chicken and egg situation.
Okay, go ahead.
If we are projecting our desires onto the screen, how do we figure out what we actually want versus what the algorithm tells us we should want?
That is the million-dollar question.
Like, I might see a post about a couple buying a converted Sprinter van to live off the grid.
Right, van life.
Yeah, van life. For 5 minutes, I think, my life is a failure because I don't own a van.
Yep.
But I know I don't want to live in a van. I like indoor plumbing.
Exactly.
So how do I extract the core human need from the algorithmic marketing?
It requires you to look past the literal image and identify the underlying emotional state being sold.
The emotional state.
Yes. The algorithm sells you the image of the van. The psychological work is to recognize that the van represents freedom, spontaneity, and an escape from routine.
Ah.
When you feel that pang of low-grade dissatisfaction, you have to trace it back. Is the desire for the man a desire to live without a bathroom, or is it a signal that your current life feels too rigid and predictable?
So you separate the van from the feeling.
Exactly. Once you extract the core need, a desire for spontaneity, let's say, you can figure out how to address that need realistically within the backstage of your own real life.
Without needing to buy a van or blow up your relationship.
Exactly.
So it's about treating your jealousy not as a fact about your relationship's failure, but as data about your own unmet needs.
Data, yes, that's a great word for it.
That takes a lot of the power away from the screen and puts it back in our hands.
It's very empowering once you get the hang of it.
But yeah, if his desire is constructed mentally, we have to look at what is happening physically.
We do.
Because this low-grade anxiety isn't just a thought, it's a physical sensation. When I see something upsetting online, my heart rate actually goes up.
Which brings us into the realm of the nervous system. And this is where Mayhan's insights are critical.
Mayhan.
Yes, she is a licensed marriage and family therapist at Spark Relational Counseling. She specializes in dating, intimacy, and repairing disconnection.
Okay.
And Han moves us from how social media affects our thoughts to how it literally conditions our biological wiring.
She asserts that social media actively trains the nervous system.
Yes, it does.
It conditions us to equate the concept of love with intensity, with constant reassurance, and with a relentless stream of digital proof.
To understand why this happens, we have to look at the mechanics of the digital platforms themselves.
Okay, let's look at that.
Human beings historically experience love through physical proximity, shared labor, and quiet companionship. It was a slow, steady burn.
Right.
But the digital environment operates on spikes. It is designed around variable reward schedules, notifications, likes, views.
All those little red dots.
Exactly. Those triggered dopamine releases. Han is pointing out that our nervous systems are being conditioned to believe that if we aren't receiving a spike of intensity, a digital validation of our relationship, then the love must be fading.
Wow.
We are confusing dopamine with oxytocin.
We're confusing dopamine with oxytocin. That's huge. We are basically gamifying affection.
We really are.
And because of this conditioning, Han sees a very specific destructive cycle playing out in her practice.
Oh, constantly.
I want to break down the exact anatomy of a digital fight because the mechanism here is fascinating.
It is a textbook psychological loop. And it usually starts with a modern catalyst, the check.
The check.
Yeah. A partner decides to check their significant other's social media activity. They look at the likes, who viewed whose story, or who they recently started following.
They're auditing the digital footprint.
Right. Then comes step 2, the trigger.
Okay.
They see something ambiguous, a like on a coworker's photo, a new follow of someone attractive. Immediately, the nervous system interprets this not as a meaningless double tap on a piece of glass, but as a primal threat to attachment. Cortisol spikes, adrenaline floods the system, the heart rate increases.
Okay, let's unpack this for a second. Let's slow down on that specific trigger.
Sure.
Why does the brain react that way? In the past, a threat to a relationship was tangible. You caught someone in a lie, or they didn't come home.
Right.
Now the threat is a 1-pixel heart icon. Why does our body react to a pixel with the exact same level of fight or flight panic as a physical threat?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it's because the amygdala, the part of the brain responsible for processing threats, is alien.
Right.
It doesn't understand context or pixels. It only understands patterns of inclusion and exclusion.
Wow. Okay.
When we attach our sense of relational security to digital behaviors, the brain starts monitoring those behaviors as survival metrics.
Survival metric.
Yeah. If your partner likes someone else's photo, the ancient brain interprets that as resources and attention being diverted away from you, which threatens your standing in the partnership. The brain registers. Danger. I am fundamentally unsafe.
Which leads to the third step.
Yeah.
The demand.
The demand, yes.
The threatened partner, driven by this physiological anxiety, goes to their significant other and demands an immediate repair talk. They want instant reassurance to soothe their spiked nervous system. They might come in hot, demanding explanations. Why did you like this? Who is this person?
And that leads to step 4, the flood.
The flood.
The other partner, who might have literally just been mindlessly scrolling while waiting in line for coffee and double-tapped a photo without a single conscious thought, suddenly finds themselves interrogated.
Right. They have no idea what's going on.
Exactly. They feel flooded. The intensity of the accusation over something they perceive as trivial overwhelms their prefrontal cortex, which is the logical part of the brain.
And when a human feels unjustly attacked and overwhelmed, what do?
They shut down, they get defensive, they withdraw.
Which triggers step 5, the final devastating result. The classic pursue-withdraw cycle.
The classic cycle.
Partner A pursues for reassurance because they feel digitally threatened. Partner B withdraws because they feel unjustly attacked.
Right.
This makes partner A panic more and pursue harder, which makes partner B feel more suffocated and withdraw further. It is a relentless loop.
And Hahn points out that when couples are stuck in this cycle, fighting to the death over a like on Instagram, the real issue is almost never the specific photo or the specific like.
Right. How many times has a fight about a phone actually been a fight about feeling secure?
Exactly. Hahn says the core issue is a lack of baseline emotional safety in the relationship, combined with our modern inability to tolerate uncertainty.
We hate uncertainty now.
We do. We have lost the ability to just sit with the unknown because our phones promise us omniscience. We think we have the right to know everything our partner does, sees, and interacts with online.
But that illusion of omniscience is highly toxic, isn't it?
It really is. Healthy relationships require separateness.
Right.
They require private thoughts and individual experiences.
Right.
But the digital world creates this false expectation that you should have complete, frictionless access to your partner's internal and external life at all times.
Which is impossible.
Completely. When you discover an interaction you didn't know about, even a harmless one, the anxiety takes over not because the interaction was bad, but because it shattered the illusion of omniscience.
Wow.
It's a crisis of trust masquerading as a fight about social media mechanics.
Okay, so if public likes and views trigger these anxious loops, we have to look at the hidden side of this.
Yes.
Because the private nature of the digital world, specifically direct messages, creates an entirely new, deeply confusing landscape for betrayal.
It really does.
We are moving from the public performance of the front stage to the hidden trapdoors of the digital backstage.
And May Han speaks very directly to this in her capacity doing affair recovery work.
Well, affair recovery work, that's heavy.
Very heavy. She identifies a phenomenon that is fundamentally shifting the bedrock of modern monogamy, which she calls the invisible boundary problem.
The invisible boundary. You know, in the past, the boundaries of fidelity were relatively clear, defined by physical actions or overt real-world secrecy.
Yes.
But today, direct messages, sharing memes, texting throughout the workday and maintaining private emotional closeness have become so normalized online that the lines are completely blurred.
They are completely invisible now.
Couples genuinely do not agree on what counts as betrayal.
Because the medium itself encourages a false sense of casualness.
Casualness, right?
Sending a meme feels low stakes. Replying to a story feels like a micro-interaction. But cumulatively, these micro-interactions can build a level of emotional intimacy that rivals or surpasses the primary partnership, all happening silently on a screen.
I was thinking about this after reading the source material, and I came up with an analogy.
Oh, let's hear it.
Okay, imagine you just bought a beautiful new house with your partner. You love the house. But there's a catch. The property lines around the house are completely invisible.
Sounds chaotic already.
Right. There are no fences, no markers, no surveyor lines. You assume the property line ends at the sidewalk.
Okay.
Your partner assumes it ends at the oak tree. Your neighbor assumes it ends at your front porch.
It's an architecture of assumptions.
Exactly. So one day, your neighbor unknowingly builds a storage shed right on what you consider to be your front lawn.
Oh, no.
You look out the window and you are absolutely furious. You feel violated. You feel disrespected.
Naturally.
But your neighbor thought it was public land. And your partner doesn't understand why you're mad because they thought the lawn belonged to the city anyway.
Wow.
This is the invisible boundary problem in modern relationships.
Yeah.
Because we haven't drawn the lines, the damage of emotional infidelity is often done before the rules of the game are even known.
That analogy perfectly captures the chaos. I mean, is sending a fire emoji to a coworker's story flirting? Or is it just friendly networking?
Right. I know.
Is venting about your relationship problems to an ex via DM crossing a line, or is it just seeking advice from someone who knows you well?
Exactly.
Because these interactions happen silently, devoid of tone and physical context, they create a massive gray area. Hahn notes that people often don't realize they have crossed a boundary until the trust is already broken.
So how do we fix the invisible property line? We have to build fences.
We do.
Hahn says that couples must explicitly define these boundaries. You cannot leave it to assumption. You literally have to sit down and agree what is private, what is shared, what gets disclosed.
Yes.
But how do you do that without sounding like a controlling maniac?
That is the danger.
Right.
Building fences can easily turn into building a prison if the motivation is rooted in anxiety rather than connection. Hahn emphasizes that defining these boundaries requires emotionally focused conversations. The goal must be restoring and maintaining trust, not policing each other's behavior like a warden.
What does that actually sound like in practice? Because if you're just auditing your partner's DMs every night, you're just back in the anxious attachment loop from step one. You're just doing it with permission this time.
Exactly. A warden approach sounds like.
Yeah.
You are never allowed to DM anyone of the opposite sex ever again, and I need your passwords.
Right. Which is terrible.
Yes, that is an attempt to control the environment, to soothe your own anxiety. It builds a cage.
So what's the alternative?
An emotionally focused conversation sounds like. When you share intimate details of our arguments with people online, I feel incredibly vulnerable and disconnected from you. It makes me feel like our relationship isn't a safe container. Can we agree that our conflicts stay between us?
The difference is the focus on the emotional impact rather than the mechanical rule.
Exactly.
You are asking for a boundary built on mutual emotional safety.
Yep.
But this raises a really critical point. For a lot of people, navigating these boundaries and having these conversations is tricky but manageable.
Sure.
But for listeners with a history of relational trauma, these invisible boundaries and these digital gray areas aren't just annoying. They are deeply structurally destabilizing.
They act as a massive accelerant to pre-existing fears.
Yeah.
To understand why, the article brings in Judy Surfety, the clinical director of the Freedom Center. Her insights pivot our discussion toward a vital trauma-informed perspective.
Surfety focuses on the false hope of predictability.
Yes.
When someone has survived relational trauma, perhaps a chaotic childhood environment, a deeply abusive past relationship, or severe betrayal, their brain naturally craves safety.
It does.
It craves absolute predictability. You want to know that the ground beneath your feet isn't going to suddenly disappear. And Surfety points out that social media preys on this exact craving.
It really does. Social media creates a highly toxic, entirely unrealistic belief system for trauma survivors.
So?
It sells the illusion that healthy relationships are supposed to be safe, predictable, and affirming from every single angle 100% of the time.
Right.
You look online and you see couples who never seem to misunderstand each other. They anticipate each other's needs perfectly. They communicate flawlessly, using perfect therapy speak in beautifully lit videos.
It's the friction-free lie.
Exactly.
And here's where it gets really interesting. The irony is just staggering. Social media makes us think a healthy relationship has zero friction. But in the physical world, friction is not only inevitable, it is required for structural integrity.
That's very true.
Like if two gears don't have friction, they don't turn.
They just slip.
Right. But if you have relational trauma and you've absorbed the digital lie that a good relationship equals a friction-free relationship, what happens when you have a normal, mundane argument with your partner about paying a bill?
It feels catastrophic.
Catastrophic.
Serfetti explains that trauma survivors develop a highly calibrated, heightened sensitivity to perceived rejection and conflict. Their internal alarm systems are wired to go off at the slightest hint of danger, because in the past, a small argument might have actually led to abandonment or abuse.
Wow.
So when they compare their real, sometimes messy, occasionally frustrating relationship to that digital ideal of total, seamless predictability, they don't just feel a little disappointed.
They feel terrified.
Yes, they feel fundamentally unsafe. They begin to doubt their own worth and the validity of their relationship. It makes them completely ungrounded.
It turns a molehill of a disagreement into a mountain of existential panic.
Precisely.
Because the thought process is, we are arguing. The couples online never argue. Therefore, this relationship is fundamentally broken, it is unsafe, and I am in immediate danger.
Yeah. The digital illusion weaponizes a trauma survivor's need for safety against them.
Which is just heartbreaking.
It is.
Right?
Which is why Serfetti's trauma-informed solution is so vital.
What's her solution?
It is entirely about mental boundary setting. It involves identifying your specific somatic trigger.
Somatic trigger. So feeling it in the body.
Right. When you feel that sudden, icy panic after seeing a post, or when your partner doesn't text back within 5 minutes, you have to actively create a mental firewall.
A firewall between what and what?
You have to separate your internal emotional response, which is an echo of the past trauma, from the outside influence, which is just a delayed text message.
Oh, I see. You have to learn to say, I am feeling terrified right now, my heart is racing, but it is not because my relationship is actually failing today.
Exactly.
It is because my trauma is reacting to an impossible digital standard of constant accessibility.
Precisely. Managing these unrealistic, digitally manufactured ideas of perfect safety is key to breaking old patterns.
It's about grounding yourself.
You have to ground yourself in the physical reality of the present moment rather than the catastrophic narrative playing out in your mind.
That requires immense grace and self-awareness.
It really does. It takes a lot of practice.
But it leads us to the final and perhaps the most grounding part of this deep dive. We've deconstructed the digital illusion. We know the front stage is rigged.
Right.
We know the constant demand for digital-proof fries our nervous systems.
Right.
We know the friction-free relationship is a lie that hurts trauma survivors.
Yes.
So if the perfect, conflict-free, high-intensity digital relationship is a myth, what should a sustainable, real-life, backstage relationship actually look like?
It requires a radical shift in how we evaluate success in a partnership.
Okay.
Rena Gutierrez, a marketing coordinator at McPherson's Medical Supply, who provided insights for the article, articulates this beautifully by discussing the concept of compression.
The incompleteness of highlight reels.
Exactly. Gutierrez observes that social media compresses relationships into highlight moments: birthdays, anniversaries, big announcements, epic vacations.
Right.
She makes a crucial distinction. The issue isn't that these moments are fabricated. The vacation happened. The sunset was real.
Sure.
The issue is that they are radically incomplete representations of a shared life.
They're just the peak of the mountain. They completely edit out the grueling, sweaty, exhausting hike it took to get up there.
They do.
And because these comparisons happen without context, the perfectly ordinary phases of a relationship, like quiet routines or minor healthy disagreements, start to feel like massive problems.
Yeah, because if we look at the architecture of daily life, relationships are overwhelmingly made up of the space between the highlights.
The space between.
Yeah.
I like that.
They are made up of quiet routines, minor disagreements, sitting on the couch, paying bills, running errands, driving in traffic.
Yeah, wait, Fife.
When your brain is conditioned by compressed highlight reels to expect constant peaks, these foundational valleys feel like evidence that the relationship is dying.
Which is why I want to bring up a quote from Mahan that I think is the most liberating sentence in this entire source material.
Oh, please do.
She offers a reframe for her clients that is deeply comforting. She says, "A healthy relationship is allowed to feel boring sometimes, and love doesn't always look like chemistry on demand."
Boring is highly underrated.
Right. We need to actively reclaim the concept of boring. We do. In an attention economy that profits off our anxiety and demands constant performance, being totally unremarkably bored with your partner is actually a profound luxury.
It is a luxury.
I want everyone to sit with this realization. There is immense physical relief in knowing that folding laundry in silence with your partner is not a red flag that the spark is dead.
Not at all.
It is a sign of secure attachment. It means your nervous systems are relaxed enough around each other to just exist without needing to entertain or prove anything.
From a biological perspective, that boredom is the parasympathetic nervous system at work, the rest and digest state. It's the absence of threat. You don't have to perform. Synthesizing the final advice from both Gutierrez and Han, the true antidote to the digital illusion isn't just knowing rationally that it's an illusion.
What is it then?
It is actively choosing transparency, grounded communication, and shared routine over performance.
We have to shift our entire metric for relational success.
Yes.
We have to stop measuring our love by constant spiking intensity and start measuring it by steady consistency.
Consistency, shared habits, realistic pacing, and honest, sometimes difficult conversations.
Yeah.
The ultimate rule of thumb here is that your expectations of your partner and of yourself only become healthy when they are based on lived physical experience rather than curated digital content.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener, right now? Let's synthesize this. We started by exploring how social media acts as a structurally rigged benchmark for love.
We did.
It forces us to compare our messy, complex backstage reality to the polished, edited front stage of everyone else, creating a pervasive, low-grade dissatisfaction.
And we learn that this dissatisfaction isn't just a fleeting thought.
You're right.
It hijacks our nervous systems. It trains our ancient threat detection hardware to equate anxiety and digital validation with love, trapping couples in exhausting pursue-withdraw cycles.
We looked at the hidden dangers of the digital age, those invisible property lines of direct messages and the absolute necessity of building concrete, emotionally focused boundaries to protect trust.
Without turning to paranoid prison guards.
Exactly. We saw how this digital illusion is uniquely cruel to those with relational trauma, selling a toxic lie of friction-free predictability.
And ultimately, we learned that the rebellion against all of this is to reclaim the mundane.
To reclaim boring.
Yes, to realize that healthy connections aren't built on performative perfection. They are built on consistency and the quiet, secure moments of shared physical life.
Real love is what happens when the camera's off.
I love that.
It is the lived experience, not the curated content.
Which brings us to a final thought for you to carry with you.
Let's hear it.
We've spent this entire deep dive looking outward. We've examined how consuming other people's curated relationships affects you. But I want you to turn the lens around for a moment.
Okay.
Think about the last time you posted a photo or a status update about your own relationship. When you tapped share, were you simply capturing a moment of genuine, overflowing joy? Or, if you are being brutally honest with yourself, were you unconsciously building your own highlight reel? Were you trying to convince the world, or perhaps trying to convince yourself that your relationship meets this modern, impossible standard? What unexpressed desire were you projecting onto the screen?
Wow. That is a brilliant, necessary question to leave you with. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the realities of modern love. Until next time, take care of yourselves, and maybe, just for tonight, leave the phone in the other room.